Hey everyone. Okay, we have made it to the end of marketing. This is the last lecture where we're going to be talking about marketing strategy. Um, and just to give you a reminder, last time we talked about three of the four P's. We did product, uh, I have to remember, product, price, and place. And the fourth one that we're going to be talking about today is promotion. But all of these things are connected. They're all about like figuring out how to design a message that we can send out to the people. This is the marketing and the social marketing. So, promotion decisions. This is what we're up against. What we want to do is we want to figure out what is the message going to be? What's it going to look like? What do we want to communicate? Who do we want to promote as the messenger? I know it seems kind of obvious, but you actually have a lot of different choices here. What's the creative strategy? What do you want that message to like feel like, look like? What images do you want to use? And then what channels do you want to use? So, where do we want to distribute this? Where is our audience going to see it? Where would be a place that if we distributed it, it would look out of place, like those types of things. So about the message strategy. So this is definitely my favorite part of this course. And really, I'm a media person. It's my favorite part of social marketing in general. This is all about, okay, how are we going to get the message? How are we going to design something that accomplishes all of our goals? One of them is, of course, to capture attention. If your audience doesn't see the message, then they can't be persuaded by it, right? But on a second level, once they see it, we want it to resonate with your audience, give them all the information they need, and make sure that it actually conforms with like our positioning statement, the goals we have for sort of the overall branding and image that we want. This example right here that I have is not there are things I like about it. It captures attention, right? Nobody's going to flip through a magazine or scroll through their social media page and not notice a young child carrying like an automatic weapon, right? That's kind of the point. That said, I do think that this is probably not what I would call social marketing, right? It's sort of like a shock political advertisement, which is great. Again, I think there's a lot of creativity going on here. But what are they asking you to do, right? Like this message doesn't have any sort of call to action. It tells you who the messengers are. Moms demand action, even though it's like, what action, right? It's like, oh, we'll figure out the action. But I love it, but I need you to go a step further for social marketing, right? You're free to use like really sort of shocking, attention grabbing images and messages and things like that. But don't stop there. Make sure that wherever you go, it's going to be something that kind of hits your audience, pulls them in, and then gives them all the tools they need to do what you want them to do. That's the whole goal here. Make sure, for instance, you're thinking about those audience insights that you did earlier. Are there any barriers you can talk to them about? Benefits or motivators you can use to sort of pull them in? Um, what do you want them to do? What is the call for action? And also, how are they going to do it, right? Where are they going to access any goods or services that you're kind of promoting? Also, if you have any belief or knowledge objectives, try to squeeze them in there. Your ad can't do everything, and you don't want it to look too messy. I'm not, this isn't a game of like, can you fit all the stuff that you've been thinking about all semester into a brochure? But I am going to want you to be thinking about those things and whatever creative decisions you make when you're trying to design your own ad, um, or brochure or whatever, just make sure that like you can sort of justify why you decided to structure the message around these things as opposed to those other things. You also need to figure out who's going to be the face of this. When I say face, I don't mean literal face, but it could be who do you want your audience to associate with the message? Maybe this is the sponsoring organization, maybe, but maybe it's not, PETA, I have up here. PETA is an interesting example because on one hand, everybody knows who PETA is. On the other hand, they're really polarizing, right? PETA is a very controversial organization and they kind of use that to their advantage. They get people's attention, but it's not necessarily something that people always are happy about, right? If they find out it's PETA, then people might dismiss their message. So I just noticed in this message, like they kept a kind of a relatively low profile, but not too low, that made sense to me. This, I'm not sure. Oops. I'm not sure if you can see this. This sex with one partner can still be group sex. Are you ready? So this is from I can't remember Mercer Island um Teens for Delaying Sex. So actually, I believe that is an abstinence only organization. And the reason I bring that up is because given that, they might not want to advertise their intentions when they're telling people not to have sex because, you know, it could cause some reactance or boomerang. So in that case, they're actually like minimizing the prominence of the messenger. Whereas the CDC, who considers themselves to be very, I would say, credible when it comes to things like immunizations. I mean, they're not making this the biggest thing, but this is a pretty clear, like, yep, this is a CDC. We're talking about the measles. We're our stamp of approval, right? So you got to kind of think about how your organization fits or doesn't fit with sort of the message goals. Some of you might choose to use spokespeople, celebrities, mascots like Smokey the Bear. You know, I know we've been thinking about those types of things all semester, and I think that's good too. If you want to, you don't have to. Just make a good argument for why you chose this spokesperson for your audience and because of compatibility with the message. One other thing I just want to mention about that when you're choosing it, a lot of people think that credibility is based purely on expertise. I mean, it's what we want. We want people to be who have credibility in a certain area to be perceived as credible, but that's usually not how it works. I can tell you that I can tell people I have a PhD all the time, and that does not give me credibility. If though people have some, aspect of credibility, but they are also likable and they're also trustworthy. That feeds into a much more stable construct of credibility. So that is why, right, we don't just have like nerds as spokespeople, why people tend to like celebrities. Because I think that the weight that they put on trustworthiness and likability, I'm not saying celebrities are trustworthy, I'm just saying if people tend to feel good about them, that really helps any sort of expertise. So ideally, you want to find a spokesperson if you're using one that sort of, checks all of these boxes: expertise, trustworthiness, credibility. Um, Also, don't forget about the usefulness of what we call midstream audiences. These are people who they are not your priority audience, but they're connected to them in some way. They are influencers to them. They might not be influencers in the celebrity sense, but they're influencers in that they are people around your priority audience who can lead them or um, convince them of things. So these could be friends or family that you want to like somehow tap into in the message, maybe community leaders. I don't know. It really kind of depends on the scope of your project. But don't think that this, if you want to use spokespeople, don't think it always has to be like Beyonce or something like that. Influence comes in smaller packages too. Okay, creative strategy. Oops. Okay, ignore the stupid numbers here that got out of whack. I'm really sorry about this. These are all creative strategy tips from your textbook, and I think they're all great. I do notice that some of them could be contradictory. So, like an example is focus on audience benefits. That's great. But if you do a fear appeal where you're trying to scare people, you're probably not going to be focusing on benefits. So, I want you to read through these and I want you to take a look at them in your book. And I would really encourage you sincerely, figure out what you want in your message and then go down this list and see if it like ticks the boxes. Like if it's not simple and clear, like ask yourself like, well, did I put too many words? Like what's going on here? Like this is all, it's a little bit vague sometimes, but it's all really good advice. It's all things that um, these are all qualities that good social marketing messages have. That said, I do want to point out that even if a social marketing message has these characteristics, it doesn't mean the message is going to be successful. One of the examples I have is Partnership for a Drug-Free America. You've probably all, at some point, even if you haven't seen the actual original advertisement, heard the this is your brain on drugs thing where the egg cracks, it goes into the frying pan. It was a very, very popular message that ended up being, kind of part of the cultural zeitgeist. I think it was parodied on SNL and all these different like sketch comedy shows back in the 80s. And honestly, the fact that I can even talk to you about it and know that regardless of what your age is or whatever, you have some frame of reference for it is a testament to how creative that ad was. It won awards. Okay, it was all great. Interestingly enough, the research suggests that it was not effective. And honestly, our first hint should have been if people are making fun of it, it's probably not having the desired effect, right? It didn't persuade people to not take drugs. We talked about the ad a lot, but it didn't actually change people's behavior. And there's some interesting stuff to read on that. Ask me, and I might be able to dig it up. But the point here is sort of you can have a really good ad, get people's attention, get people talking, but it not have your desired impact. So I want you to think about what are the things that you need to actually change people's behavior. It's not just about getting attention, although that is bare minimum part of it. Um, these are all kind of what I consider fun examples of social marketing ads. I picked some that are a little bit more like on the shock side. Not that I think that you should do that, but just because I think they make a more interesting lecture. Take a look at them, go get the PowerPoints if you want to like look at them a little more closely. The only things I want to point out is like notice that, some of these like the protect the crab cake population. This is all about trying to get people to not put fertilizer on their lawns, which is kind of right, because it gets in the waterway, it affects the crabs. They didn't make that link. I think the reason they didn't do that is because this is part of a larger campaign where maybe people are seeing ads about the crab cakes all over the place. And, so they kind of get it. Or maybe it's just to like spark interest or something like that. I do generally, even though this was very interesting, think ads like this, where look at this, they actually have instructions to text someone, they actually have a QR code. This one, reporting litter violations, right? There's actually a number people can call. Like, it's not just like trying to get people's attention. It's kind of like the awareness versus like persuasion part of it. I really want you to think carefully about what your audience is going to need, the information they need in order to do what you want them to do. It's fine if you want to be cute and funny, like some of these are, but if you don't, put in really, I mean, at least this one, so this one, gives instructions about like how to prevent coughs and sneezes by like, well, use tissues, cover your mouth, wash your hands. Like that's what I mean. I mean, there's something tangible there that people who read the ad, who are exposed to it, they feel like they can do something. The meth one, not so much. I mean, I do think that, the point is don't do math. Fair. Message received. And maybe that's appropriate, but even one of the tips over here is like if you use fear, you do need to provide solutions because if you just scare your audience without showing them how to help, they're going to turn you off. People don't like to be scared without being told how to help themselves. Um, Anyway, okay. The last thing you got to do once you have a message, and you really do, I encourage you to wait until after you have sort of like, this is what I want to say. Figure out where you want to say it. How are you going to reach your audience? The distribution strategy should fit that audience. If you think that your target audience does not go on social media, then don't put the ad on social media. It should also be places where ideally they're likely to be making decisions about the behavior. Now, that's not always possible. I mean, this is an extreme example. Like in hotels, you get the little sign about like trying to reuse your towels so that you don't waste water and stuff like that. Well, it's awesome if you see that message right by the towels, right? I mean, that's like an ideal thing. This was a cool, again, really kind of maybe, I don't know, it's pretty crazy. There's a this preventable.ca, so Canada, like there was a campaign in Canada that kind of did really shocking sort of messages around like, oh, like these dangerous things could happen. You didn't think about that, did you? Right? So you're probably not expecting a child to run into traffic. And this was a chalk drawn child. So somebody did like chalk art to make it look like there was a child in the road. Well, it's in the road, and that's where we definitely want people to slow down and act the behavior. So it's an extreme example, but you kind of get my point. It's like, no, right here, I want you to think about what you're doing. That's not, again, that's not normally realistic, but thinking about things like this, think about all the brochures in a doctor's office, right? You don't think about brochures as being a really sexy type of social marketing. However, think about how useful it is if you want people to be educated about I don't know, herpes. And it's like, well, let's let's have brochures that doctors can pass out when somebody is diagnosed with herpes, right? It makes sense. Like that communication channel of the brochure, positioning it in the doctor's office is a perfect channel for that. This is a social media message right here. I'm here to talk. I'm here to listen. I'm here for you and with you. This is something for a campaign, hashtag real convo, whatever, for suicide prevention. And it makes a lot of sense that somebody would see this scrolling on social media, which presumably means they're not talking to somebody else and they're kind of alone. And this is sort of like reaching out to them in that space to bring them into a more synchronously social sphere, right? But then there's nothing wrong with mass communication, right? This is an example of, the 5 a day campaign, eat 5 fruits and vegetables a day. First of all, that appeals to everyone, right? Or excuse me, applies to everyone. Everybody should do that. It's a thing that it's not like narrow casted to like one particular audience. So it would make sense that, when that campaign was going on, they're thinking about communication channels that access a very large part of the population. And in this case, like, I don't know what you call it, like not a billboard, but essentially a billboard in the subway where lots of people are coming into contact with it. So I want you to think about all that. Again, there's no one right answer to these things. I just want you to be able to make a good argument for why you chose some sort of format and some sort of channel for your message. That is going to be more likely to reach your audience and be, accessed by your audience. So that's it. We have officially finished all of the marketing lectures, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing your own creative strategies and hearing about how all the work you've done up until this point in the semester has led to this beautiful message. So, all right, thanks so much. Bye.